Government apps for DSE exams fail to work again. The first summit between the U.S., Japan, and the Philippines. Beijing says Japan should look at its aggressive past after Fumio Kishida's speech in Washington. Hello and welcome to TVB News. Mandatory government mobile apps used in this year's DSE exams failed to work properly for a second consecutive day, this time for the widely taken English subject. Both the Check-in Smart app for students and the I-Invigilation app for invigilators ran into problems. The Hong Kong Examinations and Assessment Authority announced part of the I-Invigilation app will no longer be used starting tomorrow. Timothy Lee reports.
The English exams and the Diploma of Secondary Education exams, or DSEs, for 47,000 students started at 8:30 on Friday morning. But many students found the Check-in Smart app did not work, just like on Thursday. This student said the digital platform failed for a long time, and he reported his attendance in person. This student said he initially managed to access the app, but then lost his internet connection and had to rely on his teacher's help. The Hong Kong Examinations and Assessment Authority, or HKEAA, also instructed relevant exam sites to update the I-Invigilation app on designated mobile phones in advance. But many such locations noted the app remained unusable. The vice principal of the Tonghua Group of Hospitals, Kwok Yat Wai College, said the digital platforms seem to struggle to handle all the examinees' data. He added staff had to resort to paper version alternatives. Similar problems occurred during Thursday's Chinese exams, with the HKEAA saying that the mobile app's ability to handle examinee data failed to live up to expectations. A lawmaker criticized the digital platforms, saying that such malfunctions could affect the performance of students. Tong Fei, a former headmaster, said it's understandable people will be frustrated with the faulty app. He stressed that staff members manually recording the attendance for those whose app didn't work would disturb other examinees. The legislator hopes the HKEAA will resolve the problem as soon as possible. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
The two-day-long Digital Economy Summit kicked off today at the Convention and Exhibition Center. The CEO of Cyberport hailed the event as a milestone for the city to further integrate into the worldwide digital economy.
I think embracing digital technology is crucial for driving the growth of our strategic industries and inject new quality productive forces into digital economy. And forefront technologies such as fintech, AI, blockchain, and Web3 now is transforming the trades and industries, enhancing efficiency for higher economic output.
Overseas, U.S. President Joe Biden met with leaders from Japan and the Philippines at the White House Thursday for an inaugural Trilateral Summit. This as a U.S. aircraft carrier strike group led by the USS Theodore Roosevelt held a three-day joint exercise with its allies, Japan and South Korea, in the East China Sea. The dueling military and diplomatic maneuvers are meant to strengthen the partners' solidarity. Tracy Furness has more.
Speaking at the White House Thursday with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., U.S. President Joe Biden stressed Washington's defense commitment to the two Pacific allies.
And I want to be clear, the United States defense commitments to Japan and to the Philippines are ironclad. They're ironclad. As I've said before, any attack on Philippine aircraft, vessels, or armed forces in the South China Sea would invoke our Mutual Defense Treaty.
Marcos and Kishida met with Biden to show they are in lockstep about countering China's so-called military assertiveness.
Today's summit is an opportunity to define the future that we want and how we intend to achieve it together.
危機に直面する中、
Kishida said, in the midst of compound crisis faced by the global community, multi-layered cooperation between the allies and like-minded countries is essential if we are to maintain and bolster a free and open international order based on the rule of law. The leaders announced their coast guards will be holding a joint patrol in the Indo-Pacific this year, a follow-up on law enforcement drills carried out last year by the allies in waters near the disputed South China Sea. The summit comes a day after Biden held one-on-one talks with Kishida and invited the Japanese premier to a glitzy state dinner at the White House. U.S. officials reportedly said the summit was a forceful reaction to China's conduct. Beijing had said China's maneuvers in the East China Sea and the South China Sea are in line with international laws. Twisting the facts would damage China's sovereignty as well as threaten regional security. Tracy Furness, TVB News.
Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida impressed American politicians with a speech in English at Congress earlier in the day. He spoke to lawmakers about the virtues of shared values and ideals while touching on a perceived threat from China and Russia. In Beijing, the Foreign Ministry said Japan should reflect on its history of aggression and stop hyping up security threat. David Garrett reports.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister of Japan.
After a state dinner with Joe Biden the night before, Fumio Kishida received a warm welcome to the Congress floor. Many US lawmakers want to see him and be seen with him, as Washington is keen to cultivate relationships in Asia. Kishida was greeted by Kamala Harris and the House Speaker, Mike Johnson.
Members of Congress, I have the high privilege and distinct honor of presenting to you His Excellency Kishida Fumio, the Prime Minister of Japan.
Despite being enemies in World War II, Kishida is keen to show Japan and the US are on the same side.
Freedom is the oxygen of humanity. The world needs the United States to continue playing this pivotal role in the affairs of nations. Defense of freedom, democracy, and the rule of law is the national interest of Japan. The Japanese people are fully committed to these values. I do not want to leave our children in a society where human rights were suppressed.
Kishida touched on security fears in Asia and said Japan stands shoulder to shoulder with the US.
Japan has transformed its national security strategy. Uncertainty about the future stability of the Indo-Pacific region caused us to change our policies and our very mindset.
He pointed out Japanese astronauts in the balcony with the nations planning moon landings together.
Thank you, gentlemen.
There were standing ovations again and again for Kishida as he painted a picture of the two countries' partnership in the future.
Global partners for the future. We are your global partner today, and we will be your global partner in the years ahead.
Not everyone was impressed. There were a few hardline Republicans in the room who notably did not stand to applaud. They follow the America First principle and think, like Donald Trump, America should get less involved in global affairs. David Garrett, TVB News.
Some large U.S. airlines and some of their unions are asking the Biden administration to stop approving any more flights between the United States and China because of what they call anti-competitive policies that China imposes on U.S. carriers. The airlines and unions said that China closed its markets to U.S. carriers at the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic and imposed rules that still affect American operations and airline crews. A letter sent to Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg called for a policy protecting the U.S. aviation industry. The letter was signed by the CEO of the Airlines for America trade group, as well as pilot groups. The U.S. increased the number of round trips for Chinese airlines from 35 to 50 per week, after Chinese aviation authorities promised to seek an increase in flights by U.S. carriers. Airdrops have been parachuted into Gaza, but they were shortly followed by heavy black blast smoke as the Israel-Hamas war continues. These aerial drops have been one of the few ways to get food and medicine to Palestinians as Israel's forces regroup for an incursion into Rafah. Last week, 7 aid workers from World Central Kitchen were killed in an Israeli strike described as a grave error. Many aid groups have stopped distribution as a result. A UNICEF aid worker who was taking supplies in overland on Thursday says she was lucky to survive a gunfight.
I was in that car that was hit. It was waiting at a holding point just south of the Wadi Gaza checkpoint, where we are often instructed to wait before being called through the checkpoint. We were waiting there as instructed, and gunfire broke out in the vicinity. It seemed to be coming from the direction of the checkpoint towards civilians, who then turned and fled from the checkpoint. Luckily, myself and my colleagues, we were all safe, but this just underscores how dangerous it is for humanitarian aid workers in Gaza at the moment.
Still ahead. Former Chief Secretary Henry Tang says the waste charging scheme will disturb residents. After Wednesday's deadly fire, residents want to get their belongings from the building. The controversial former American football superstar O.J. Simpson dies. Welcome back. From April the 22nd, the government will phase out the use of disposable plastic tableware and other plastic items. From that date, Hong Kong will have to act plastic-free. Restaurants cannot offer dine-in customers disposable cups and plastic food containers, while shops are not allowed to provide or sell items such as plastic straws, knives, and forks. The Environmental Protection Department said they had visited 20,000 small and medium-sized restaurants, and 20% of them have abandoned the use of disposable tableware. The department said a 6-month adaptation period will be given for implementation. Former Chief Secretary for Administration Henry Tang said the implementation of the municipal solid waste charging scheme would cause disturbance to residents. Tang also criticized the government policy on the use of plastic utensils. Timothy Lee tells us more.
14 designated locations were chosen to operate the municipal solid waste charging demonstration scheme at the beginning of the month. But the participation rate of residents was only between 20 and 50%. Many are still concerned about whether the scheme could be rolled out on August 1st. Former Chief Secretary for Administration Henry Tang, who is currently a standing committee member of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, or CPPCC, urged the government to rethink the waste charging measure today. Tang said authorities should examine the current social and economic environment as well as the state of green education. He believes the community is supportive of green measures, but stressed the waste charging measure will disturb residents if implemented in the near future. Tang also challenged the regulation of disposable plastic tableware and other plastic products, which will start on the 22nd of this month. He said the switch to the use of paper lunchboxes will cause inconvenience to many, adding such boxes are more expensive than their plastic counterparts. Tang also talked about the challenges facing the government's finances. He said there is no urgent need to complete projects such as Lantau Tomorrow Vision, the new High Court, or rebuilding of prisons. Meanwhile, Starry Lee, the city's sole National People's Congress Standing Committee member, noted the details of the waste charging scheme failed to address many questions raised by residents. She said she does not rule out the possibility of a chaotic situation if the measure is implemented in August. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
2 days following the deadly fire at the new Lucky building on Jordan Road, Yau Ma Tei, in which 5 people were killed, residents tried to return to their flats today. Mimo Sangai reports.
This is the new Lucky building after the massive fire. Smoke stains can be seen on the wall of the construction. Although the blaze broke out on Wednesday and had been put out, the affected site is still cordoned off. People laid flowers at the entrance for the 5 victims who passed away in the incident. The fire investigation team arrived and went inside the building. To enter the site, residents must register with police officers by providing identification documents. A long queue was formed outside the building early this morning.
Some residents at the new Lucky building said they hope to collect their belongings in their apartments as soon as possible.
No, I just need my slipper and some clothes maybe some can wear. I just cry. I cannot talk anything. Cry because I like this place very much because until I 3 years living here because very easy to go MTR buy something. So it saw my place very broken, so very unhappy.
She became emotional when she talked about her cat, which was still missing on Friday. The woman said the cat saved her life in the incident.
I want to check because you see one died cat and then I don't know which color. My cat is black color. Because of the cat I can wake up.
The new Lucky building is 60 years old. After investigation, the fire services department said fire doors on 11 of the floors had been damaged. The last inspection of the site's fire safety equipment was conducted in September 2022. The buildings department said they had requested the owner's cooperation as early as 2008 to improve fire safety, but the request has not been followed up. Nonetheless, New Lucky building is not a unique case. Authorities said more than 9,000 buildings in the city have not followed the fire safety improvement instructions. About 20% are in the Yaojiamon district. News 9, TVB News.
Lawmakers raised concerns about the taxi industry's proposed fare increase today. The sector proposed a $5 increase on flagfall for urban taxis, which would see the starting fare rise to $32. The sector also called for a $4.50 rise for New Territory taxis and a $6 increase for Lantau Island taxis. At the Legislative Council today, some lawmakers said bad service is one of the reasons for the declining use of taxis in the city. Transport Commissioner Angela Lee said the authorities will consider the public's opinions. In the United States, former American football superstar O.J. Simpson died from cancer Thursday at the age of 76. Overshadowing his achievements was a 1994 trial where he was found not guilty of the murder of his ex-wife. NBC has more.
The trial of the century and the death today of the man at its center, O.J. Simpson, brings back the long legacy of a trial that concluded nearly 30 years ago.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
That not guilty verdict in the brutal murders of his former wife and mother of his 2 children, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend, Ronald Goldman, reverberated around the country. Met by outrage by many who believed he was guilty and that there was a mountain of evidence that proved it.
This prosecution team didn't lose today. I deeply believe that this country lost today. Justice was not served.
While many in Black America cheered what they saw as justice, so often denied in their community, finally done. The nation had been captivated just 5 days after the murders on a Friday night when 95 million TV viewers watched as Simpson in a white Bronco, driven by a former teammate, led officers on an hours-long low-speed chase, reportedly holding a gun to his own head.
He has been charged with 2 counts of homicide.
Finally, he surrendered to police. Within months, Simpson went to trial, which was broadcast daily. Much of the public following each day's testimony, judging the evidence in the 8-month trial for themselves.
Now that I did not, could not, and would not have committed this crime.
The trial highlighted many of the fractures in the country's legal system, bringing together celebrity, race, and the power of money. The defense team, dubbed the Dream Team, was made up of super lawyers who were able to both undermine the state scientific evidence.
All right, would you show that to the jury, Mr. Simpson, and that man?
While also capturing the jury's attention with their mastery of courtroom theatrics.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
And the jury did acquit a man who, until the trial, had led what appeared to be an accomplished life. He rose from poverty, becoming one of the greatest football players to ever play the game. A college star at USC, Heisman Trophy winner, and a record-setting player with the Buffalo Bills, who became known as the Juice. He went on to star in commercials.
Nobody does it better than her.
And television and movies. And while he was acquitted of murder, his life afterwards spiraled downwards. In a civil lawsuit, he was ordered to pay over $33 million to the victims' families, most of that debt left unpaid. He returned to court multiple times over the next several years for traffic violations, even pirating cable TV. But it was a Las Vegas robbery in 2008. Simpson said he was taking back personal stolen property that ultimately sent him to prison.
Count 1, conspiracy to commit a crime. Guilty. Count 2.
He served 9 years.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Have a great weekend.